Morning, YouTube pipe community, Cobb modifiers, and people that are looking to get in the Cobb Foolery contest. This is going to be another video in my tips video about modifying Cobbs, and this one's going to be more along the lines of talking a little bit more about custom shanks, or the replacement of your stock Missouri Meerschaum shank that came on your Cobb. Now this method, the method I'm talking about is what I talked about, I think, in a couple of other videos or back, maybe one or two, where you take your stock Cobb or shank, you cut it off, let's say about here, sand this down and fit your new custom made one over top of that one. And what that kind of looks like is you'll end up with something like this. Actually, it's just a real stubby. And this is what I'm dismantling for my Cobb Foolery contest this year that I hopefully get done in time. But anyways, this is what you're going to be left with. And when you do that, you're going to run into a problem when you put your custom made shank over the top of it. And it's something I probably should explain in that video. And it's going to be a problem even, you're going to run into it more than just when you're doing the custom shanks. There's other things you're going to do to a Cobb where you might run into this problem as well. And this is the way I found to solve it, and it works beautifully. So let me explain a little bit more. When you do that method where you cut that off and you have that little nub, and you're going to go over the top of it with your new shank, like on this Cobb, let's say I cut it off and I'm going to slip this one over. Well, the thing you're going to notice, and whether or not you can see it on camera, is this is cut flush, and the circumference of the Cobb, when they meet, you're going to end up with these gaps here, right where they meet on the sides, where this does not have the curvature to get a nice neat joint, which is not a super huge deal. I'm not sure if it's just something that bothers me a little bit more when I do my Cobbs, where I want that joint to look nice and clean and maybe not have a lot of glue. I don't like to use really the glue or the epoxy or whatever I'm using to affix that to actually fill that gap. So how do you alleviate that problem? So here's a tip that I came up with. Take the Cobb you're trying to fit. Let's say this is the Cobb. I'm trying to get a stem on here, but I want it to follow that curvature of this Cobb. What I'll do is I'll take a piece of paper, sandpaper, and put it around the Cobb. And then I'll take whatever stem I'm trying to fit on there, and I'll take it and I'll just kind of work it back and forth on that piece of paper, which eventually, from sanding on that, it'll start to sand this curvature into this end. So when you meet them, you're not going to end up with this weird gap. You're going to have a weird gap like on this side and this side, where that flush piece, that piece that was cut flush, isn't going to follow that curvature. And that'll alleviate that problem and get a really nice clean joint. And it'll look more aesthetically pleasing, and it won't be just a joint that's kind of filled up with epoxy or glue. So I hope that helps any of you guys that were wondering about that other method. Or like I said, you can use it in a lot of things. Let's say if you're doing something crazy where you're trying to match this onto here for your contest, like those Lost Cobbs, you could, theoretically, you could put the sandpaper, let's say on this twing, and then just kind of work it real slow, so that that curvature will finally sand its way in. Granted, it is a little time consuming, but it's definitely looks wise. And to make it look neater, it's definitely worth that extra step. It's not super time consuming, but it is a little bit more time consuming than just gluing it on there. So that is that. Hopefully, I don't know, maybe that's worth $1 or a cup of coffee. You guys have a good afternoon, and hopefully you guys contest, if you're going to enter it, everything's going well.